All My Tomorrows, written by Ellie Dean, read by Julie Maisey. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Chapter 1. East End of London, 1942. The small tenement room that Ruby Clark shared with her husband Raymond was musty with the odours of unwashed bedclothes, long-forgotten meals and grimy heat. An iron-framed bed took up most of the space, and, apart from a table, 2 rickety wooden chairs, and a dilapidated chest of drawers, there was precious little else, just a few pegs on the back of the door to hang their clothes. This was where Raymond Clark's suits hung from hangers, along with his carefully ironed shirts, and a line of his highly polished shoes sat on a sheet of newspaper by the meter for the gas fire. The superior pedigree of all this finery simply made the little room look shoddier than ever. But Raymond had a reputation to keep up, and he thought nothing of spending his ill-gotten money on bespoke suits and handmade shoes, even though Ruby had to wear hand-me-downs she found in the Salvation Army clothes store. As Ruby finished washing in the bowl of tepid water, she could hear the shrieks and shouts of her neighbours penetrating the thin walls and echoing along the landings and down the concrete stairs. It was never quiet in the block, and although she was inured to it from childhood, it seemed louder than usual today, making her long for just a few moments of precious silence in which to mourn. A fly buzzed with annoying regularity against the single dirty window, which overlooked yet another tenement block, and the ticking clock on the narrow mantel above the gas fire reminded her that she was in danger of being late. She glanced wordlessly at her mother, whose expression was as dark as the cup of tea she'd been drinking, and sank onto the thin mattress. The bedclothes were sweat-stained and in a tangle, but regardless of the trouble it might cause later, she simply didn't have the energy or the time to replace the linen and tidy up. Ruby dragged on her underwear, pulled the worn cotton frock over her head, tugged it down, and with trembling fingers began to do up the buttons that ran from waist to neckline. It was an old dress, the once cheerful colours muted by too many washes, the material as thin and fragile as her spirit. Yet the softness of it comforted her, wrapping itself around her bruised body like a gentle caress. She ignored the baleful glare from her mother and slipped her bare feet into the high-heeled shoes Ray liked her to wear when she worked behind the bar at the Tanner's Arms. "I have to go to work, Mum," she muttered. "We need the money." "It's only been a week and you ain't well enough, gal," retorted Ethel Sharp, her skinny arms folded tightly about her waist. "If it were up to me, you'd be back in that bed for at least another few days." "But it ain't up to you, is it, Mum?" she said softly. "Ray said I have to go, so I'm going." She picked up the almost toothless comb and scraped it through her thick brown hair, her defiant words belying the awful dragging ache in the pit of her stomach, and the desperate yearning to climb back into bed and curl beneath the blanket. Ethel's metal curlers bobbed beneath her headscarf, and the wrap-round pinafore quivered over her slight bosom as her pent-up anger could no longer be held at bay. "He's a wrong 'un, Ruby. No decent man would do what he done and then expect you to go—" "Stop it, Mum," she interrupted wearily. "I know you mean well, that he's my husband, and there ain't nothing you can do about it, so give it a rest." Ethel took hold of Ruby's shoulders and gently turned her to face the scrap of fly-spotted mirror that was propped on the old chest of drawers. "Look at yourself," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "You're 18, Ruby, and yet you look as old and worn out as me." Her tone softened, and there were tears in her eyes as they regarded each other's reflection. "You got to learn to dodge them fists, Ruby, and you got to keep your gob shut or he'll kill you one day, just like he killed that poor innocent little baby you was carrying." Ruby flinched at the words that struck so deeply, but determinedly masked her emotions. To give in to the pain and the sorrow would be her undoing, and nothing could turn back the clock and save her precious baby. "He said he was sorry," she replied as she turned away from the mirror, "and he promised he wouldn't thump me again." She sniffed back the tears. "I've got to believe him, Mum," she whispered. "His promises don't
Sample complete. Ready to continue?